Hey everybody, I'm Kurt Conrad, a sports reporter at richlandsource.com, and you're listening to West Fourth and Goal, a podcast devoted to high school football here in Richland and surrounding counties. We're coming to you from the IdeaWorks podcast studio, and again, I'm joined by co-hosts. And are we co-hosts or are we tri-hosts? Anyhow, I think tri-hosts Noah Jones and Zach Heiser. Noah's he's a news reporter here at Richland Source, and
I
Zach,
don't know what I do for a living. Let's be honest.
And Zach he's a man of many hats. He does a lot of things here. And guys, thanks for joining us. And before we get started, I just want to say thanks to those guys. They do all the heavy lifting here on the show. I get to sit in front of the mic, and
he's a humble guy.
Sit in front of the mic and talk about high school football with high school football players. They make this work, so I certainly appreciate everything you guys do. And while we're at it, I'd like to thank all the listeners out there. Our first two episodes this season have been really, really good. They've been some of the most downloaded podcasts we've done here.
Yeah, we're really hot right meow.
Indeed, we are, and we certainly appreciate you guys. You can get us. Where can they find us?
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you download podcasts.
Possible, yeah.
YouTube, richlandsource.com.
Okay, well, cool. We have a great show. But before we introduce this week's guest, I'd like to welcome a new sponsor on board. Two Cousins Pizza is the official pizza of West Fourth and Goal. And we are certainly glad to have them on board. There's an insider secret, I guess, if you want to have high school football players do a podcast, just offer them free food, and they will be more than welcome to come join you.
That's why I'm here, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that tolerable when you have NCAA players?
Yeah, we may have to.
We may have to.
We may have to revisit that. No, but Two Cousins, they do a great job. For my money, there's not a better sauce in Richland County. Andy and his team over there do a great job, and we are certainly glad to have them on board. You can reach them. It's Two Cousins Pizza. It's 419-522-2211 or twocousinspizzaco.com. Again, 419-522-2211. And I've been looking forward to this week's guest since early last season. We're joined today by Shelby quarterback McGwire Albert. And McGwire, thanks for coming down. Welcome to the show.
Yep, thanks for having me, guys.
And it's like I said, I've been kind of thinking about this one for a while now. I mean, McGwire, you kind of had a dress rehearsal, I guess, 3-game dress rehearsal last year when Brennan Armstrong was suspended there, and just talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, I would imagine you were coming out of your freshman year. You find out that you're going to be the starting quarterback, and the All-Ohio guy's going to be taking a seat. What's running through your head there?
All right, so I was sitting in study hall with all of kind of like my teammates. It would have been the seniors last year, and they came up to me. They're kind of joking around, like, you're going to be the quarterback the first 3 games. So I'm, like, sitting back. I'm like, man, what are they doing? Like, they're pulling my leg or something. They're doing something crazy to me. And then, my dad came up to me in class. He kind of pulled me out, and he said, you're going to be the guy the first 3 games. And he said, you're going to have to lead this team in the right direction. And, from there on, I kind of just put that in the back of my head. And I said, you know what, I'm going to have to just go out and show people what Shelby kind of, like, can, like, I don't know what to say. So, like, we always say that, like, we don't graduate tradition. It just kind of rebuilds itself. So, I mean, I just kind of stepped in and did what I do best.
Was it go ahead, Noah.
Well, I was just going to ask, like, what's the mindset change from, being behind this, at the time he was a Big Ten recruit and you're not expecting to get much play time, but especially not become a starter. And now all of a sudden you're starting the 3 games. What's the mindset have to change to be in a hurry?
We kind of had time. We had all summer to prepare for this because it happened at the end of the school year.
Sure.
But, I just think that I really wasn't ready for it. But the guys and the seniors last year, they were like a great class. They're like one of the best classes we've ever had. And, their leadership was just like undoubtedly like the best I've ever had. And, they kind of made me feel comfortable with everything.
Was Brennan pretty helpful in that whole transition, I guess? I mean, you probably couldn't ask for a better guy to learn from, I guess, than Brennan Armstrong.
Kind of like just sitting back and watching Brennan, like, kind of take in the whole process and everything, he kind of, he definitely helped a lot. People have asked me that question so many times, and all that kind of stuff. So, he definitely was. He was always in my ear, telling me the right reads, the throws, everything. So I got to learn from one of the best.
Were you pretty? I covered that game last year against Madison, and you looked real comfortable for a guy who had never started and probably didn't expect to be in that situation. Was there ever a time where you're thinking, where maybe the lights were too bright and you got a little nervous, or?
No, just our offensive line last year. They protected me a lot for the first 3 games, and I couldn't thank them enough for that, But we also had guys around, Carter Brooks, Brady Hill, all those kind of guys. They kind of stepped up and helped a lot too.
Yeah, as great as Brennan was, he certainly wasn't the only one. And talked to Coach Eric Will earlier this year, and he said, "Well, we graduated the greatest football class in our school's history,
yeah.
and it's not just one guy. There was a whole bunch of great athletes in that group."
Yes, there was.
Well, playing behind him and watching him, and then having him go off to D1 school, are there any lessons, I guess, that you learned just from the way he prepares, or the way anything like that?
He takes everything serious.
Yeah, he certainly did.
It doesn't matter if it was in practice or we were outside, like, just messing around as friends. Everything he did he had a purpose, and he did it the way he wanted to do it.
Yeah, and he took his interviews seriously too. I don't know if you remember, but that's a kid who was all business all the time. It seemed like
Yeah.
there was never a lighthearted moment, I guess.
I know. I like to think of myself as funny, but he didn't laugh at any of my jokes.
Yeah, he's kind of serious like that. That's just his attitude.
Right. And McGwire, you're kind of Shelby football royalty. Tell everyone who might not know about your family, and it goes back a long time from what I understand.
All right, so my great grandpa, which would be my grandpa's dad, he won our first school's ever league title in 1946, and then my grandpa, from the time he was in 8th grade to the time he graduated, never lost a football game. My grandpa, actually, on my mom's side of the family, played with him too. He was kind of the same way, never lost when he was in high school. And then my dad, he was 1 game away 2 years in a row, just Bellevue got him. And then my uncle actually went undefeated and won the last league title until last year, actually.
So you can't afford to lose a football game, can
No.
you? Is there? I don't know if it's pressure. Is there? What are family reunions like for you? Is it all football all the time?
Like every Sunday, our family, we kind of get together and we eat. And it's not even like the whole family. Like, and my uncle that I kind of said in the interview, he was with my grandpa. They're like 11 months apart, so it's kind of like me and my brother. But yeah, we all get together, the whole entire family, on every Sunday, and we eat, and just the stories they tell and everything about that, just growing up and listening to that, it's kind of been instilled upon me and my brother both to kind of keep the tradition alive.
Right. Did any of your dad, grandparents, uncle, did any of them play in college?
Actually, my dad played baseball at Ohio State, and my mom played at Dayton for a little bit, but they both transferred out and went to Ashland University after that.
Okay.
Is football something you would like to pursue beyond high school? We were talking just briefly off air, and the recruiting hasn't really picked up yet, but that's not to be expected, I guess. You've only played a couple of games.
Mm-hmm.
But when that time comes, is that something you'd like to do, is pursue football beyond high school?
Yeah, I definitely would love to play sports in college, but if need be that doesn't happen, then I'll have to find a backup plan. But right now, I really don't know what I want to do after high school.
And you're a basketball player too, is that right?
No, I play baseball.
Oh, you're a baseball player.
Yeah.
I apologize for that.
What position?
Depends. Growing up, I was a catcher, but last year we had a really good catcher in Dylan Beekman, and he's all league and all that kind of stuff. He had league honors, so I played first base last year for us, and I really don't know what I'm going to do this year, but I just look forward to every sports season.
Right. And back to football a little bit. You guys, obviously, you did what you did last year. You win a conference championship. You get all the way to the state semifinals.
Yeah.
What is that experience like, and how much does having that experience, how much has that benefited you, I guess, this year?
Last year, after the first 3, I kind of played special teams and all that kind of stuff, but we would beat teams by a lot, so we would always get to go in. And just the experience that we got, the atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. The coaches tell us to take all that in because it might not ever happen again. So all of us young guys, we kind of took that in, and I think it's kind of showing right now that we're ready to go back.
Is it? That class was so heralded, I guess. They were so everyone had talked about them for so long. Is there as part of you, like, do you want to prove that you guys can do some things on your own here a little bit out from underneath that senior class's shadow, or what's that dynamic like?
Like I said earlier, Coach Will always tells everybody that like we don't graduate, we reload, kind of like that. So I mean, we had, I think Owen and I just wanted to say that like Owen and me last year, we kind of kind of proved to like everybody that Shelby's kind of got some stuff to look forward to after this class. And I think like that's just like what me and Owen like to do, is like we like to go out like every game, we hang out together, we do all that kind of stuff together. But like, I mean, we just like to go out and prove that that's what we're here to do.
Sure. And this is kind of an exciting, I don't know if it's exciting how you see it. It's an exciting time, I think, though. I mean, you guys are transitioning from one conference to another. I mean, and I don't know, have you guys put much thought into that? Are you guys, I'm a little confused. Are you guys still a member of the SBC this year? Are you eligible for the conference championship?
We're not. They tell us we're not eligible for a conference title and all that stuff. So, like, none of the kids are going to get league honors or anything like that. We can just get state honors and that stuff. So, I mean, no, we can't really win a league title. But, I mean, I'd like to say that if we win a league title, that we're going to hang up a league title banner.
Absolutely. Because they send out the statistics each week, and I noticed that Shelby wasn't included in the Sandusky Bay stuff, and I'm like, well, that seems unusual. And you guys will transition into the Mid-Ohio next year. I mean, is that an exciting? I mean, how do you look at that? I mean, there's some pretty good football that gets played in both conferences, but I mean, you be joining. I tell you, I'll enjoy it because you'll be in with Clear Fork and Ontario, and that'll be exciting for a sports writer.
I kind of know a lot of kids from those surrounding schools, like right here, just because like I've grown up and played against all of them competitively. But like up in the conference we were in last year in the SBC, I really don't know any of those kids other than the kids from the schools that were previously in the NOL with us.
Yeah, you guys, you'll be a class that's been in 3 conferences in 4 years, and then 1 year was kind of a independent, which is a little unusual. I mean, you guys went from NOL and to the SBC and now to the MOAC. Is it hard? I mean, you guys have maintained a lot of those traditional rivalries. I guess like those aren't going to go away. I would imagine you guys are still going to want to beat Bellevue every time you play them.
Oh yeah, like Bellevue is definitely our rival. I would like to say just everything that like I've grown up hearing is Bellevue. Bellevue beat my dad those 2 years.
Right.
And like my grandpa would always tell us how hard Bellevue was. Like if Bellevue wasn't good that year, Bellevue still was their hardest game all year just because they wanted to come out and beat Shelby.
Right. And I would imagine that made last year a little sweeter for you guys. You guys got them in the regular season, and then you turned around and beat them in a regional championship game. I mean, to win a regional is obviously real exciting. To beat your rival to win that regional crown, I would imagine it's even better.
I mean, yeah, the atmosphere at that game was not like any other, I would say. But our Coach Will would always tell us, beating a team twice is the hardest to do in the same season, especially when they know what you do. But, I mean, when we played them the first game, they had a couple kids hurt.
Right.
And then when they came back, I mean, it kind of made a difference just because they scored. I think they were like the one team that we didn't have a running clock on.
Right, that's the only team all season long, and up until the Steubenville game that was able to not get run ruled basically there in the second half. And then Steubenville. I mean, you guys have played them the last 2 years. You had a good look at them last year.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing a team that is that tradition rich and is so good year after year, does that give you something to aspire to, I guess? I mean, is that something you shoot for?
I mean, that beating Steubenville is always in the back of our mind just because they've got us the last 2 years. Right. But there's a kid on my brother's baseball team in the summer that he plays with. It's from Steubenville, and he plays football. And they would always say that, like, Shelby and Steubenville are kind of like the same kind of program.
Right.
Like, we're both historic and wins and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, just the culture and football life in our 2 towns are just, like, the same.
Yeah, and you mentioned younger brother is Merrick, and you get to play high school football with him. What's that? I mean, is that a pretty neat experience?
I mean, growing up, we've always played every sport together just because we're 11 months apart, and we're a lot like our grandpas and my uncle. But I mean, yeah, just like playing with him is a blessing. I couldn't ask for anybody else to play with.
Is he a receiver for you?
He's a tight end and a receiver. We line him up wherever. He's basically like what Uriah does. He'll line up wherever, like opposite of Uriah, or whenever Uriah needs a blow, he'll go in and do the dirty work for us.
And you talked about it, and we talked briefly about it after your season opening win over Madison. You're throwing to a guy who is the defending Division II state champion in the high jump. And I would imagine that's a pretty nice safety blanket. I would think. I mean, you got a guy, you just got to get it in the zip code, and he can go up and get it for you.
Yep. I mean, Uriah runs like really crisp routes. He can jump. He can just outrun anybody. I mean, he's just a freak.
Yeah. He really is. And you know, your other receiver, is it Stein? Is the other receiver?
Stein and Tanner
and
Stevens.
And Stein's older brother was a state high jump guy too. I mean, it's not like he can't go up and get it too. I mean, that's a luxury, I would think, especially. And you could talk about it. I mean, for a young guy who hasn't made a lot of starts, to have guys that are reliable like that, I mean, I would imagine that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable.
I mean, yeah, Uriah is really the safety blanket just because he's played since a freshman. But Cameron and Tanner, they played their freshman year and kind of didn't play the last 2 years. And that was Tanner's was because Tanner was hurt and Cam just kind of took time off. And but yeah, Uriah is really like the safety blanket because those guys are have just about as many experiences as I do.
Right. How about defensively? Do they have you doing anything this year, or are you mostly just concentrating on one side of the ball?
I mean, at the beginning of the year, I was like kind of playing safety and all that, but then once they figured out that we kind of had a couple safeties that could do everything, that I could just focus on offense. But I think this week they have me at outside backer just for the defensive stuff, like the pass coverages and that stuff, just to go get in pass coverage.
Right. And you guys play Willard this week. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But before that, I mean, you guys open the season with a comfortable win over a Madison team that's clearly in a rebuild mode sort of situation, and then you play in week 2 a team that you've had your way with the last couple years. You guys had your hands full. I mean, Lexington came out and they gave you all you wanted. I mean, just talk a little bit about that. I mean, is it good for you to go out there and get in the fire, I guess, a little bit when it's not 48-8 and the clock's running in the second?
Most definitely. I kind of think we came out, underestimated them a little bit. We knew they were going to give us whatever they had just because it's hard for a team to rebuild or rebounds back after they go 0-2 in a year. It's like what Coach Will would always tell us. But, yeah, we kind of underestimated them, came out like after that pick and we scored. I think we kind of fell asleep a little bit, kind of like, oh, yeah, this game's going to be a breeze, and then they came out and handed it to us a little bit.
And, I mean, you got a good look at him. I mean, they got a guy who's going to Ohio State.
Oh, yeah. He's legit.
He's real easy to spot out on the field. He makes just about every play for him. What's it like playing a guy like Cade Stover?
I mean, it's definitely something I would look forward to, or the team would look forward to, just because you don't get to see that kind of player every game. So I mean, we kind of took what we got in from that. He delivers a couple blows, but we had to get back up, and I think we delivered more blows than he did, and that defense did. And as a team, I think it kind of helped us succeed a little bit more.
And you guys, I mean, I didn't cover the game, but I had a chance to see some of it on television. I mean, it seemed like you guys were in a pretty good spot late in the game.
Yeah.
There was a turnover. It lets them get to within 27-24. I mean, that's some anxious moments for sure. And I would imagine ball security this week in practice has been kind of a talking point for Coach Will.
Yeah, definitely. But I say towards the end of the game last week, it's not like an excuse or anything, but the balls were wet, and we kept asking the officials, if we could like change the ball every once in a while, just because it was getting a little slick and hard to throw. And they kind of said no, like the balls are fine, like they'd wipe them off for us, but they were still kind of slippery. And Owen was all sweaty and all that kind of stuff, but his gloves were kind of like wet. So I mean, that fumble was a bad handoff by me. It's my fault, and now I got to take responsibility for it.
And we were talking just briefly here before we got started. You guys were one of the few teams who actually practiced today, and we are sitting right in the middle of just crazy record-setting heat. I mean, is that something the coaches are aware of? I mean, are you guys real careful about heat-related illness and stuff like that?
Yeah. So today we practiced inside the Aux gym, right by just to the right of the high school when you walk in by the gym. But yeah, we had to go in just helmets. We're not allowed to go in shoulder pads or anything for the heat, like the whatever they are. I mean, personally, I would have rather been outside today because I didn't think it was that bad. But I mean, yeah, they take precautionary steps.
What do you do in an indoor practice?
We do the normal stuff, we do like inside run. We work on our our throwing progressions, like the formations that Willard would run or any team would run, and all that kind of stuff.
Is it difficult, or not difficult, but I'm sure it's a bit of a change to run on, either whatever that material is, rubber, clay, wood, as opposed to grass? Does that sort of take a second? Are your strides different or anything like that when you run?
I mean, it's not really full go just because we don't have pads on. It's kind of more of a walkthrough kind of thing. But today went really well for us, and I'm kind of excited for Friday.
And you guys have a Willard team coming up this weekend, and that's along with Bellevue, that's been a traditional rival for you guys. I mean, I go back long enough to remember some really intense basketball games between those two schools. Is that rivalry still? I mean, do you guys, coming from a player perspective, do you still sense that it's there?
Yeah, the most definitely. They don't like us, we don't like them. But at the end of the day, I think that we'll be ready for them.
And they're a team that is they're going to stay. I mean, you guys were not in the same division in the Sandusky Bay Conference, but I mean they're going to continue in this SBC. And I don't know if you know, but I mean, will the game continue, or is this it for a while?
The coaches have told us that I think this is going to be the last game that we play Willard for a while, just because we get a new schedule next year and we have more teams, so it'll be like a 7-league game kind of thing instead of a 6.
Right, and is it exciting? I guess I mean you, like you said, you've grown up playing against some of those guys from Ontario and Clear Fork. I mean, is it more fun for you to play those guys, or do you even think about it?
It's definitely something you think about, but at the end of the day, like when you go up the line up against that person, you're like, man, just the things like you have to do and all that. Like you put your friendship aside, and it's time to go to war.
Sure.
But is it more fun to beat the kids you grew up playing
with?
with?
Most definitely, because there's some like in football, you could just be like, oh yeah, like we beat you in football, and they can say they beat you in basketball and all this stuff. So it's kind of just like a bickering back and forth. It's kind of like bragging rights.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break here. Can you stick around for a few minutes more?
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. So you're listening to West 4th and Goal. Stick around.
Before we get back to this episode, have you signed up for Startup Weekend Mansfield yet? September 28th, 29th, and 30th in Mansfield, Ohio, and we will be hosting our first ever Startup Weekend, and the event will be held right here at IdeaWorks on 40 West 4th Street in downtown Mansfield. The cost is only $50 to attend the weekend-long event, and that includes 7 catered meals, networking opportunities with some very successful entrepreneurs, plus all the internet and coffee you can consume. Just search Startup Weekend Mansfield on Facebook to learn more and buy your ticket. I was informed also that on September 15th, the cost of a ticket will actually go up, so hurry and get your ticket for Startup Weekend Mansfield today.
Thanks, Zach. Welcome back to West 4th and Goal. We're here with McGwire Albert, the quarterback at Shelby High School in McGwire. Thanks for sticking around. Let's just talk a little bit. I mean, this year, obviously, I mean, last year, what you did was as impressive as it was. You weren't a guy that people were looking to lead that team. This year, I would imagine that has changed a little bit for you. I mean, are you a guy that has to be a vocal leader this year?
No, not really, just because all of my friends I would say friends now, are my teammates, and growing up, we've like just all bonded over the years. So I'd say it's not really that I'm a leader. It's kind of a team thing this year, I would say.
Right, and you guys still have a lot of seniors who I would imagine are filling in on that role.
Oh, yeah.
I know Uriah Schwemley is. We talked a little bit about him briefly. He's I would imagine it's him and Nick Amstutz and those senior group. It's kind of their ship right now. And I just wanted to touch on it. I mean, it's Nick, right? Nick Amstutz.
Yeah.
He is obviously a big, huge guy out there protecting you. He's been doing it for a long time. How reassuring, I guess, is it to have an anchor like that in front of you? I would imagine you're not too worried about what's coming from wherever he's lined up.
No, not really. I mean, just say that last year, the first 3, that he was at right tackle, and he's moved over to left tackle this year. So I say that that's just huge on his character part and just shows how athletic and able to change he is.
Right. I mean, it's you'd think left tackle to right tackle. It's not necessarily. I mean, unless you've done it, I would imagine there's some pretty significant differences that go on there. I mean, it's almost like you're playing. You're playing a different world. I mean, and for him to be able to make that switch, I think that, like you said, it shows a lot what he's willing to do for the team and just how physically gifted he's able to do that. So you guys open the season with a comfortable win over Madison. I think you threw for 210 yards, a couple of touchdowns. You rushed for I think 3. Have you been surprised at all that you've had the success that you've had, or have you kind of prepared? I mean, because last week you were almost up to 300 yards, 2 more touchdowns. I mean, is this something that's a surprise to you, or is this just the next natural step because you've prepared for it for so long?
I think that as a team, it's not like just me. I can't succeed the way I am without my offensive line and the guys around me. So it's big kudos to those guys for helping me, get to where we are now. And just it's a team thing, and I can't thank them enough for helping me.
Right. And you guys, obviously, with the success you've had the last couple of years, I mean, going into a new year, despite the losses off that team, I mean, have expectations changed that much? I mean, are you still fully expecting to be playing in Week 11 and Week 12?
I'd say yes, just because that's Shelby tradition. Shelby's a natural-born football town from the time I've been alive and probably till the time I die. So I'd say, yeah, we're kind of expected to get back there. It's just our tradition.
Right.
Did you expect him to say anything else?
Well, I think it's always fun to hear it directly from them, and I would imagine, given your lineage, you probably are. There's probably going to be some other Alberts coming along.
Yeah.
You guys, I would imagine it's it's such strong roots, I guess, to the town there. I mean, is it I would imagine you don't plan to stray too far away, or
I would always say, or I tell people that I'd love to live on the West Coast or somewhere warm where it's warm all year round. But I mean, my dad told me that he thought the same thing when he went to Ohio State and all that. But he told me he wound back up in a small town in Shelby, Ohio.
Right.
You'd miss the Polar Express if you left.
Yeah, probably. You're right.
And bicycle days, right? That's a big
yeah.
thing.
Yep.
That's a bigger deal than the Polar Express, I think.
There you go. I've never attended bicycle. Have you been to bicycle days?
Yeah, bicycle days is crazy. I would say it's up there with the fair. Just it's cool to see all of the people that come down to support just in such a small town.
Right on. I mean, do they have a parade? I mean, have you guys been to it?
I've had to cover it. There's a parade with a whole bunch of little kids and ridiculous helmets and streamers on their bicycles, and it's cute. But I definitely enjoyed. They also do fireworks at the end of bicycle days too, right? And that's sort of more fun.
That is a slice of Americana, right there.
yeah.
That's exactly what it is, right?
It doesn't get much more American than that. Yeah.
Well, good. Let's and again, McGwire, thanks for being here. We're gonna rehash what happened last week from around the area. Maybe get some of your thoughts. We've already talked a little bit about your game against Lexington. And then we'll go over some of the games that are coming up here. Mansfield Senior finally, I shouldn't say finally, it's week 2, but they got off the schneid, I guess, a little bit, and they took 3 overtimes to do it. I don't know if you pay much attention to what goes on around the area, but I think 35-34, they go to triple overtime with Sandusky Perkins. They win. I think they blocked an extra point to do it. I mean, have you ever played in a game that's gone beyond regulation like that? I mean, can you imagine what's going through your mind when you get to? I mean, you got to be exhausted, right? You're 3 overtimes into it.
Yeah.
You just got to figure out a way to win that game.
The only thing I can say about that is just extra innings in baseball, because I've never had to go into overtime, because in middle school we're not allowed to go into overtime. Sure. So I mean,
last year there were precious few opportunities. You guys were hanging it on people all year long. There weren't overtime situations.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you think, and I guess you can't speak from experience, but I mean, does mindset? I mean, is there come to a point where you're like, I don't want to be the guy to make the mistake, or do you want to go out there and be the guy to score the winning touchdown? I guess.
All pressure. The pressure's always on the quarterback, and I'd say the quarterback is a special position in football because all eyes are always on you. Coach Will would always say in practice, he's like, all eyes are going to be on you and do all this kind of stuff. But I mean, as a quarterback, it's kind of it's natural. You're kind of born with it. Just that. The presence of, you're going to have to go into like these kind of pressure situations, and then can you respond? And that's what all the big time players do.
Excuse my ignorance, but what are the high school overtime rules?
All right, so
I'm not the sports reporter here.
No, so varsity football, I'm pretty sure, is the only sport, like the only time in football in high school and middle school that you're allowed to go into overtime.
Okay, and then is it sudden death? Is it possession?
It's kind of like college.
Okay, it started at 25, and okay.
You get a chance, I get a chance, and it goes back and forth like that. Now, and we were talking about it last week, and maybe because I don't know right off the top of my head, but in college there comes a point where you got to go for 2.
Yeah.
You can't.
It's like the third or fourth overtime, I think.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Do you know if it? I mean, because Mansfield Senior kicked an extra point in the third overtime, and they blocked Perkins, and it was 35-34. Senior high win. So I don't know. I mean, if someone out there does, I'd be glad to find out because I mean, at some point I thought that you had to go for the 2-point conversion after a touchdown, but I don't know what that situation is.
I don't know that either.
Well, there we go. We'll
call in.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Exactly.
We'll have to call out to Clay.
Email us news@richlandsource.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Other games around the area. Noah, you had the week off.
I got to play Pokemon Go in Cincinnati this week.
Tell us about that. How was that?
Well, it was really great. I caught a Houndoom.
Wow.
I'm pretty stoked.
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
I don't think I'm showing my age there.
Did any of them meow at you?
No, unfortunately, I didn't catch any meowths. Otherwise, they
Dang.
probably would have meowed. But I don't think that
No
happened.
meows. That's a bummer.
No, none whatsoever.
And Zach, did we have you out shooting
No,
photos
no,
last week?
I didn't make it out.
Oh, I thought
I-
was that the plan?
It was the
initially?
plan.
Okay.
Other things came up.
Well,
We are just letting you down in
Yeah.
this room.
I guess
Sorry,
I'm the
Kurt.
only one who covered football last week. No, I was at for the second week in a row. I was in Ashland County. We have another website, ashlandsource.com. We didn't have a writer out for them, so I was pinch hitting over there, and I saw for the second week in a row I saw a Hillsdale team, and they played Ashland Crestview, which is a double area game over there, and Hillsdale won comfortably again. They have a very good, a really good football team over there. I'm a Hillsdale graduate, and when I went to high school there, the football program was a train wreck. I mean, one win a year was a great season for him.
Dang.
That all got turned around with
Yep.
Tom Williams, who recently stepped down, and Trevor Klein, the new coach, is kind of continuing that. It's super exciting. I mean, not just as it's a lot more fun as a sports writer when the teams you cover are good, and when it happens to be the school that you graduated from. It's a pretty neat experience. So go Falcons! I got them again this week actually. It's a lot of fun to go out there, and it's kind of like a class reunion every week that I go and cover Hillsdale because
Yeah,
like Shelby, I mean it's a tightly knit community, and
Yeah.
so it's fun to go.
that's cool.
Other games from last week that were kind of interesting. Ashland again, they and Ashland is when you think of Ashland football, you think of that spread offense and all the points they score and the quarterback after quarterback that they produced. And both their games this year, it's come down to a defensive stand in the fourth quarter, and that's not not taking any shots at the Ashland defense by any stretch of the imagination, but that's not the first thing you think of when you think of Ashland High School. And I think in week one they came up with a big stand, and then last week against Green they did the same thing. So they are 2-0. That's a team in the area that in the Ohio Cardinal Conference that Mansfield Senior, if they're going to contend for a championship, that's a team that they're going to have to go through. So, and again, those games are, the senior high Ashland game is sometime middle of the year, but it's a lot more fun when both those teams are 6-1. It's a lot more exciting when there's something on the line when you get there. Going into this, before we go,
Lucas is 2-0 as well.
Who's?
Shout out to the Cubs, Lucas Cubs,
Absolutely.
2-0 as well.
They got a good thing going down there, and if you've never seen a Lucas High School football game, it's something to see.
It's on my bucket list.
It's the only place where all the lights are on. That's for sure.
The offense is
in Lucas. I mean,
yeah. The offense. I mean, it looks like a rugby scrum. I mean, it's very, it's not exactly. It's not exactly McGwire throwing for 250 yards at Lucas. It's
No.
They're a running team.
Yeah, it's a lot of inside handoffs. And
you played them this preseason, right?
Yeah, we kind of scrimmaged them in Crestview, and they kind of run that older style of offense that you would see. But I mean, so I know that they got that Jeb Grover kid.
Sure.
I've heard of him, and he's a pretty good ball player.
Yeah, he's been doing it down there for a long time. I would imagine people who play against him are probably tired of seeing him because he's been running for 200 yards. He's been running it up on people for 4 years now, and he is. He's one of many. It's not just him. They got a quarterback now. They got two other running backs down there, and it's no accident that they make it to the playoffs every year with the system that they've got going right now. It's kind of fun to watch.
Right.
A game that was of interest for you guys last week was Ontario Highland because those are both teams that are in Region 14 of Division 4, which is the region you guys won last year.
Yep.
Highland, it's kind of from what I understand, I haven't seen them play in a long time, but they kind of do a lot of the same things. They run a wing tee, I guess it is, and they. There's a lot of inside handoffs, a lot of quick hitters, and they've always got guys down there that who can run with the football. And I'm certainly not the only guy who last year would have liked to seen a Shelby Clear Fork matchup in the regional championship game, and Clear Fork, just like you guys, I mean they're doing it again this year.
Yep.
I mean, do you pay much attention to what happens in Southern Richland County? I mean, for Richland County football fans, that's the game I think that everyone would like to see at some point is Clear Fork and Shelby for a regional championship.
You know, I kind of keep up on sports, college, NFL, high school. It doesn't really matter. You're just the pros or anything like that. I love sports. I've grown up playing sports my whole life, and it's just so I pay attention to really just everything, even the little details.
Right. So and that's a question I like to ask guys is sometimes. You play football, but then the last thing you want to do is sit down.
You're not a fan.
Right. You don't want to sit down and watch games all day Saturday, but it sounds like you're a guy who can sit down and watch Ohio State score 77 points on a team. And
that was impressive.
Yeah. But are you a fan? Do you like to watch games on the weekends?
Yeah, like me and my dad and my brother, it's kind of like a family thing. We sit down and we watch the Buckeyes. We've always done that, but we'll watch whatever game's on after the Buckeyes.
Right on. And let's jump ahead to this weekend. Lots of games. When we touched a little bit on Shelby, they play Willard, and without giving away too many secrets, I guess. What do they do well? What concerns you guys?
They kind of run like the same kind of defense as Madison would. Just they play a little bit more man than cover 3. So I mean, I'm very excited to get back at it.
Right. And Noah, you're headed to the
I am headed
northern
to
Richland County, right?
Yeah, Plymouth and Buckeye Central. I am not entirely sure about much. I did get to meet Mark Genders. I was up there at a practice today trying to take photos that ended up getting thundered or rained out. Yeah. And so I don't know much about the team, but I'm excited to get to write a story on Friday night.
And Buckeye, I think, Buckeye Central has they're traditionally, there's a time before you arrived here, but not so long ago, where Buckeye Central was playing for a Division VII state championship.
Gotcha.
Things didn't work out. They ran into one of those teams from the Midwest Athletic Conference out near the Indiana line, and things rarely work out well when you play one of those teams.
Yeah, right.
But to get there is that's commendable, and those kids, I'm sure, despite their struggles here recently, those kids all remember that because it wasn't that long ago. Like I said, I'm going back to Southern Ashland County this week to see Hillsdale at Loudonville. Loudonville has a coach, a new coach this year. He came over from. Well, he was most recently an assistant at Ashland University. His name's Kevin Maltrich. For area football fans, they probably remember he was the head coach at Madison for 1 year. Then he went to West Holmes, which was his alma mater, and then eventually he ended up at Loudonville. And Loudonville has been they were competitive this year, which hasn't been the case. I mean, they were 0-10 last year, have struggled the last few years, but I would imagine that's a tradition-rich place too. I remember a time when Loudonville played for a state championship. It was when I was a senior in high school, and that those guys have all had children now, and they're coming up through the program. So it's it's something that it doesn't settle real well when you go 0-10 along the banks of the Mohican River down there, and I'm sure they are excited to get things turned around. Another game I think that's going to be super interesting this week is Clear Fork at Jonathan Alder. Jonathan Alder used to be in the MOAC with Clear Fork. They have since moved on to a different conference. They kept that as a non-conference game. Jonathan Alder is traditionally a playoff team, and I mean Clear Fork's been hanging it on people here through 2 weeks, and that's a game that could potentially have implications for you guys over at Shelby. I mean Clear Fork won a lot of games last year, a lot of close games, and ended up with the number 1 seed in the region. And if they continue to do that, they're gonna amass some points to stay up near the top of the regional standings. So I mean, a Clear Fork win there, and that puts them. They might. I think are they ahead of you this week? Do you pay attention to those standings? I can probably tell you.
I really don't pay attention to the stands or anything, just because at the end of the day, I mean, if we win, we win. We lose, we lose. But I mean, the standings don't really mean anything until week 10.
Right. And we're talking about the playoff point standings, the regional standings, and right now Clear Fork is in 6th in the region, and Shelby's in 2nd, but wins over teams like Jonathan Alder. That's the stuff that they're gonna boost you up there a little bit. So, and like you said, I mean, I think all those point standings that's more for people like me who make a living at it. I mean, you guys are gonna have to play them eventually. If if things work out, you probably don't worry too much about that. Other area games of interesting. Lex is at Orville. Lex, I mean, they are.
What was that?
Dude, all I know, I just like in playing high school baseball, the ride to Orville, the bus ride to Orville was always the worst.
Yeah, it's
like an hour drive, but it always took 2 hours in a school bus.
Yeah,
it's a good luck to those guys.
Trek to Central Wayne County. And Lex, I mean, if any football team in the area deserves a win, it's probably them. I mean, they have. I think week 1 was 14-7. They gave up a touchdown in the final minute. Week 2 was 27-24 to Shelby. I mean,
they could easily be 2-0.
Absolutely, and you know, it's coulda, woulda, shoulda. But I'm sure that it would be nice to see them. And I think they beat Orville last year. It would be nice to. And Orville is, I think, considerably better this year than they were last year. They struggled a bit last year, but it would be nice to see Lex, be able to see all that hard work pay off. And I mean, we had Cade Stover in here a few weeks ago. He's a super nice kid.
Yeah, great guy.
You hate to see a guy suffer through, that, just struggle that much. I mean, they certainly deserve a big win. Mansfield Senior hosts Westerville North, and that's Mansfield Senior's home opener. They were on the road for the first 2 weeks. They're kind of a hard team for me to figure out right now. You guys saw them in the or 7-on-7s and stuff like that. I mean, there's certainly no shortage of athletes at Mansfield Senior. There never is. And the strength of that team is their offensive and defensive line. They got a group of guys who, I mean, I've covered senior high football for 20 years, and I can't remember a group with this many big athletic kids all in the same class. They're all juniors this year, and they've all been starting since they were freshmen. That said, though, they haven't, they've given up some points here through the first couple of weeks. So I would imagine, we had Clay Caudell in here last week, and I would imagine they are really want to get that thing turned around. They're playing a Westerville team that's 2-0. It's Westerville North. There's several high schools in Westerville. There's several high schools in every suburb of Columbus right now, and the population down there is just blowing up. But Westerville North is traditionally, they've struggled. There was a time not too long ago where they lost, I think, 45 straight games. They're 2-0 this year. A win for Mansfield Senior would do, I think, a whole lot in terms of computer points and in terms of confidence-wise, getting ready to start conference play the following week there. But so that should be exciting. That's over at Arlen Field. Madison, it's been a rough couple weeks for Madison.
It's been a rough couple of years for Madison.
Well, yeah, it has, and they're kind of in a rebuild, and that's no secret to anybody. They play an Akron North team that there's a pretty good chance. I mean, it's a game that it's one of those games on Madison that I'm sure they circled and said this is a game we can win. North has struggled. I think they're 0-2. They it's not great football. I mean, that's certainly not a shot at them. I mean, it's just they've struggled here recently.
Right.
So it's a chance for Madison to get to feel good going into conference. I think, which would do them a world of good. I think. Another area game that's significant in terms of potential a windfall of playoff points is Lucas at Northmore. Lucas is 2-0. Northmore is 2-0. I think you covered this game last year where Northmore beat Lucas, which was a bit of a stunner.
Yeah, that was a game that, if I remember correctly, the running game that Lucas typically only runs just sort of worked against them, and the clock just wasn't. There wasn't enough time in the game for them to catch back up. I think that, if I remember correctly, they looked really great in the second half. They may have even been in position to win the second half. They just ran out of minutes.
Right, and when you run an offense like that, and
how do you come back?
Right, there's not a whole lot of chances. I mean, you're not used to scoring quickly. It's not
right.
It's not an Ashland offense where they score 45 points and they can score from 85 yards away. It's not like that. I mean, they do it deliberately. They do it 4 or 5 yards at a time.
I think last season they threw maybe like 4 times a game.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I think that's.
I know you're probably like, that's disgusting.
Yeah, you guys have thrown it a little more here over at Shelby the last few years. I think that's those are the big ones. We've taken more than enough time here. We certainly appreciate you coming down, McGwire. Thanks for listening, folks. It's West 4th and Goal, and check in next week. Thanks.